This is going to be your guide for using Greedent in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, even though Greedent is an early game rodent Pokemon, it actually has some really good stats. 120 on the hit points is a great foundation for tank, 95 defense, pretty solid, 75 special defense could be better, but this Pokemon will survive hits and do really well when fully defensive invested, so let's keep an eye on it. Next up, we have the unique thing that every Generation 8 Pokemon gets, and for Greedent is going to be the Stuff Cheeks move. Consumes Berry and raises the user's defense by 2. That actually sounds really awesome. So you're getting multiple benefits at once. You can either force some sustain with something like a Wiki Berry, so you're getting 1/3 of your health, or you're getting 2/3 of your health, because Stuffed Cheeks plus Cheek Pouch is a pretty ridiculous combo while gaining stats. So your tank getting tankier with sustain and all kinds of other crazy benefits, and you can also look into some other items to combo with the Stuffed Cheeks. So let's go into the moveset. Another thing that's also about Greedent, it gets one of the best moves in the game, Stockpile. You gain defense. You gain special defense. It caps at 3, but by then you are already unkillable. So this is what I have in mind for the Greedent, and then Gen 8 bringing in Body Press means that once we hit the +2 defense and the other +3, so we're at +5 defense between Stuffed Cheeks and Stockpile, Body Press is going to be doing insane amounts of damage, and then we have Rest. We don't need Chesto Resto, we just rest. And then we survive 3 hits. We wake up, we one-shot the opponent on Body Press, and then we see what happens from there. So that's what happens when we just get these insane stats that keep stacking on themselves. That's why I was also looking into the Maranga Berry, because this sounds like one of the best situations that could ever happen for any Pokemon out of the entire decks, national decks included. Use Stuffed Cheeks. You gain +2 defense, +1 special defense, and 1/3 of your health in a turn. And with our tankiness, if we're fully invested in hit points, we do some kind of split. You know, since we are going to be +5 defense and +4 special defense, I think that having high defensive investment, but putting most of our effort values into special defense is going to be the best way of balancing out this Pokemon. And it ends up at 249, 249. So physical hits are more common. It means you get to set up against physical Pokemon a little better, but it means if a special attacker does come in with a powerful hit, you're going to be fine as well. So you just set up, and then you become unkillable. And you know, Stuffed Cheeks, Stockpile, Stockpile Rest, Wake Up, Stockpile Shenanigans seems like a really doable thing for the Greedent, since we're just going to be gaining non-stop stats. Unfortunately, we don't get really anything else out of our item or ability once we've used it, but that's pretty cool. So we can go and take a quick look at Greedent's moveset as well. No Recycle! I want to see the Recycle, man, on a tanky Cheek Pouch Pokemon, because the only other Cheek Pouch that can, like, do some shenanigans, kind of, is the Dedenne, but Dedenne has very pitiful tanking stats. Like, sweet, we can actually use Recycle, we can actually get these things set up, so, boom, Recycle on the Dedenne, and we get 60% of our health every time we Recycle, and then Citrus Berry plus the Cheek Pouch activates, but we don't have really great ways of making ourselves tankier. Like, we don't even have Iron Defense. We don't have anything. No Calm Mind either. We just have, like, hopefully sustaining and not getting one shot, but eventually we go down, and maybe we pull some cheekiness, like a Thunder Wave, Super Fang, and then we just kind of whittle down the opponent, but Dedenne isn't tanky enough to make this happen. And also, we have more weaknesses with the Dedenne than we do on the Greedent, because Greedent is just a normal typing. So we worry about fighting, no worries about Ghost, and I don't think all of these neutral hits really matter. Like, it's cool to have resistances, and it's cool to have reliable setup, but this is just such a straightforward typing that you take a hit, it does 40%, and then you gain so much more out of it, to where this is like incredible amounts of setup. Now, I did want to compare it to the Snorlax, because when it comes to normal typing, stockpiling tanks that just once become unkillable, even inside of a rest, Snorlax is kind of the best option. So, Snorlax does have a much higher hit points, lower defense, and then actually a much higher special defense as well. So if we just kind of like look at weird distributions of stats on these Pokemon, we can see that Dragapult does 30% on a Draco Meteor, and then 41% on a Dragon Darts. Now, when it comes to the Greedent, Greedent takes 33% more special damage. However, we want these 3-hit KOs. This is a Draco Meteor, Life Orb. Well, it is uninvested, because, like, I'm just trying to show, like, a mixed scenario. So if it was, like, a proper Draco Meteor, that's still fine because we eat that hit, we use Stuffed Cheeks, we get 30%, Maranga Berry activates, then we can stockpile and rest, and it's also a Draco Meteor, so a non-Draco Meteor, just powerful special attack, we don't care about, which means we get to set up against pretty much anything that isn't hitting us super effective, and a nice little thing about this is that since we are a normal type Pokemon, we can't get hit with a Max Phantasm, which would drop our defense, which would also be bad. Now, Max Darkness can kind of screw us over, but we still have options of like staying tanky throughout whatever the opponent is doing, and their setup doesn't really matter as much as ours. Either way, compared to Snorlax, we take a bit more damage on these special attacks, and then actually not too much on the physical attacks. So physically, we're about as tanky, you know, if we just flip it, you know, max out the hit points, max out the special defense, and then we have maxed out hit points, maxed out defense. Snorlax is going to still be, like, tankier, but we have all this free sustain, and we have these extra things going for us, so it's really nice. And remember, we end up at a +5, +4, so that's going to be 14, 14. If we have Snorlax, it's just going to cap out on +3, unless you do Curse Amnesia, which is still a really nice thing to have, so it's 11 and then 15, and by this point, you know, the little 2% more hit points taken doesn't really matter either. So Greedent is comparable like that, and it has better things going for it than the Snorlax in some situations. But that leaves us with an obvious problem. Body Press doesn't work against Ghost-type Pokemon. Now, you can play around this, that if you just play your other two Pokemon to like Dynamax and remove any Ghost-type threat, then Greedent is just going to win the game for you. It's more doable in 6v6, but also in 3v3s, they just might not bring a Ghost-type Pokemon, and then you win anyways. So you might get in like a weird situation where it's like your Greedent's your last Pokemon, they got 2 Pokemon left, and then you just hope that their last Pokemon doesn't show to be a ghost. If it does, you lose, or maybe you can even go for PP stalling at that point, since Rest keeps you down for 3 turns, and they're going to be attacking you and not having anything going. Body Press, like, we got some decent PP right here, especially with a Stockpile. So max out your Stockpile on the PP, and then Rest, and then hopefully you can maybe even stall out like that. If they don't bring Ghost-type Pokemon, then you just win anyways. So that's a nice thing as well. There are some ways we can get around this. Swords Dance, Stockpile, so we can just kind of trade off and get tanky as we need to, and this means we're going to get a reliable +3 and then make it to that unkillable state pretty easily. So Cheek Pouch comes in, so let's say we take a hit, Stockpile. We take a hit, we Stockpile. So we're at +2, we're hardly taking damage, we get our 60% back, we Stockpile again, we might even be able to thread in a Swords Dance, and then we rest. And then we're able to Swords Dance Rest, Swords Dance Rest. Thief is going to be doing a crazy amount of damage, or just some kind of move that isn't going to be immune by anything. The go-to is Dark. We have a move like Crunch. Crunch has the chance to lower their defense, so it's like hit him with a Crunch, hit him with a Crunch, defense drop, KO. Stuff like that happens. You can get like set up against with other Iron Defense Pokemon, and then the game gets pretty weird. But I also like the idea of Thief, because our Citrus Berry is gone. As long as we don't steal a Choice Specs, or like a very bad choice item, then it'll be okay. But I mean, yeah, Choice Specs and Scarf won't work, but if we have a Choice Band, and we're at +6, and then we're just hitting them hard while not taking damage, sure, we won't be able to rest, but it's actually going to speed up our KOs, so that could also work. Or we just steal a useful item, like another Citrus Berry, or an Assault Vest, and then we just don't die while we keep hitting them with the Thief. So you can, I just want to show Thief, you can use Crunch, you can kind of put whatever move you want to here, but you have some other options that can make this set work better against everything, but this set just gets tankier quicker and makes use of the Stuffed Cheeks and what this Pokemon is going for, and it's still pretty terrifying. Also, we can just utilize our bonus health and base tankiness to become an offensive Pokemon and still do a lot to the opponent. So, Swords Dance with max hit points, max attack, Brave Nature, Gyro Ball, that is going to be some insanity, and then we have Earthquake and Crunch for the coverage, while we are getting this crazy amount of bonus health. Ideally, like, best case scenarios, you Swords Dance, you take over 50%, you get boosted back up to full, you Dynamax, and then you just start doing some crazy stuff, because Earthquake gives you bonus special defense, and then Gyro Ball is going to be giving you defense. So you even come out of this tanky and able to survive while you're +2 using higher base power moves and then getting a lot of coverage. Also, when I was talking about the other Greedent moveset, where it's like you get Thief, you could Crunch, Payback is also an option that Greedent gets, and since you're slow, you're going to be getting more damage from the Payback, doubling to 100 power than the natural 80 power of the Crunch. But if you kind of value the defense drop, that's a thing. I just want to kind of include it as an option. So there's a few things you can do with Greedent, and it turns out to be a pretty solid Pokemon. And then we have the classic, Belly Drum Last Resort. We're tanky enough to make this happen. We can also make this happen in a much more sweepy kind of way. So you just lead with the sacrificed Dusclops. Trick Room, Memento. So the opponent gets their attack and special attack cut in half, which means your Greedent is going to set up even more, or at least a lot more safely, and then you're preserving as many Trick Room turns as possible. So use Belly Drum, and then you got some last resort sweeping to do. You don't need it. I was like looking at some of the damage calculations. Here's the Silvally. So we have an Adamant max attack Silvally using multi-attack, a 120 base power move that gets stab, and we can even run this defensively. Like, look at these shenanigans on the last resort. Because it's high base power, because it's a stab boosted move, we don't need any defensive investment. So we can run a full tank Greedent, be a 3-hit KO Pokemon, which allows us to get that Belly Drum set up, and then we're fine. When we take a look at the moveset like this, you know, we take a hit, we Belly Drum, and then we take a hit, we Last Resort. So we're able to trade 1-for-1 with this Pokemon really well. Now, the 20 base speed means that pretty much nothing is ever going to be slower than us. So the Greedent, when you're running it like this, is just a 1-for-1 nuke. But if we're using the Trick Room set, then that means we get 2 Last Resorts, and we're probably at a good enough health situation to take another hit and then get that third KO with the Last Resort, even once Trick Room wears off. So that could be, you know, giving up 2 Pokemon for 3, or a really weird 2-for-2 with potential for more, and it just kind of depends on what the opponent does from there. Once again, gets walled out by Ghost-type Pokemon, but it is a very high damage, just crazy pop-off strat. And by the way, if you kind of look at this, this is a Dynamax Silvally. So that's the damage of a +6 without any attack investment. Well, it is an adamant nature, so I mean, we don't need defensive natures, because it's like, we need that extra little bit of damage. So a non-defensive tank Pokemon, like even any sweeper going into Dynamax, you one-shot. Any fully invested tank that isn't resisting you, you're going to one-shot. People are talking about Dracovish being busted, even though there's so many things that need to go right for that Pokemon. It needs to be in rain, it needs to be Choice Band, it needs to get the outspeed, and Stealth Rocks are relevant. But when it comes to Greedent, you just Belly Drum Last Resort, and then you can KO the tankiest Pokemon in the game. So yeah, there's an interesting case for the Greedent. I was also looking at just some like other special attackers. So Jolteon coming in with a Life Orb, this is the situation that we're looking for. So we don't get one shot, or actually we don't get like 2-hit KO. 2-hit KOs get kind of fishy because like if it's a 52% or 53%, we can still pull it off. But in a situation like this, Jolteon hits us. Even if it's like the not max damage roll, say we take 49%, we Belly Drum, that's going to drop us down to like 1 hit points, but then we get almost 60% of our health back. We're able to survive that next Thunderbolt, we Last Resort, and then Jolteon is going down. Also, I guess it shows that not only Ghost-type Pokemon, but Focus Sash does kind of stop this strat. It is something fun to throw out as just a response to either a ridiculous sweeper that you can't deal with, or just a super tanky Pokemon that doesn't resist you. If you can make that work, Greedent is going to pop off. So there we go, guys. That is how you use Greedent in Pokemon Sword and Shield. I guess it does need the recycle. That might have actually been too strong if Game Freak gave it the recycle. We don't have the Darkest Lair out, so we can't like hit through any defensive boosting for like our Swords Dance set, which is why I'm just like Crunch or Thief. So I mean, it is missing a couple of weird things, but Stockpile is just busted. Stuffed Cheeks works, and this Pokemon has some really nice stats. Just kind of be solid as a tank, and then just take out some other Pokemon. Or when it shows like this on the breeding, can't ignore it, and then some fun stuff can happen. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.